recurring segment on our show called Explain That Grammar, where we do a deep dive.
Hi everyone, my name's Ivy Nguyen, and I'd like to welcome you to Heat Check. We have David Daw, myself, and Cleveland Tukualu on the front end, with Philip Stewart, Gary Josie, Ethan Nguyen, and Eli Sachs on the back end.
Hey there, y'all. Philip here. One of the biggest inspirations behind HeatCheck was running a web application that's dedicated to letting users find restaurants that specialize in spicy foods. And I think that we've really been able to make an application that does very well at letting users find restaurants near them or a general location, and then also review those dishes from those restaurants and tell us how spicy they are, how tasty they've been, and just like get a general idea of who's got some of the best spicy food in a given area.
We would now like to show you how Heat Check works. When you arrive on the homepage of our application, you'll be able to log in as a specific user to perform all the features we have. On a side note, you can also do some of the basic features without having to log in at all. A user can find spicy restaurants near them by either using their full address, city name, or zip code. Let's see what spicy restaurants we can find here in Denver. Once the application has found most of the spicy restaurants from your search, you should be able to see a list view of them with their image, name, and rating from Yelp.
You can also view results in a map format and click on individual restaurants to view more details. From either the map or list view, you can go to an individual page for a restaurant that will give you details like the address as well as custom menu of the restaurant's spicy dishes. These dish results are scraped from Yelp by our backend team, but users can also create their own custom dishes. You can name the dish whatever you want and give it a spiciest rating from not very spicy to well.
Users that created a dish can also delete it, and each dish has its own individual page. Here you can see other users' dish reviews and even add your own if you haven't reviewed the dish yet. Next, we'd like to talk a little bit about how we built HeatCheck. On the front end, we used React and React Router to build out the site, along with Mapbox to generate our map view. We then used Cypress for testing, GitHub Actions for continuous integration, and then finally deployed on Heroku. We also used Apollo Client to make our GraphQL calls to the back end.
On the back end, we used Rails and GraphQL to build out the specific API endpoints that were requested by the front-end team. These endpoints could be split up into two types, queries and mutations. Our GraphQL mutations controlled the CRUD functionality of our Postgres database, while our queries allowed us to build out customized JSON responses to let the front end retrieve the exact data that they needed. Our database schema included a user table, a dish table, and a review table. We wanted to keep the database relationships simple, but with room for flexibility for any future iterations. We achieved this with a many-to-many relationship between users and reviews, as well as a many-to-many relationship between dish and reviews, with our review being the joins table that links users and dishes.
For an example of one of our GraphQL queries, I'll be going over get restaurants. So from this query, it shows all the restaurants with the given attributes within a specific location. Next example, but for mutations, I'm going to be talking about creating new reviews. So in this file, we have a class with all the attributes that are needed in order to create a review. We then have a method in this file that creates a review, saves it, or raises an error if it cannot be saved.
Our information about restaurants comes from Yelp's Business API. We use the service facade design pattern to retrieve and serialize information about businesses that matched our search and were in proximity to our location. We then created restaurant objects that we can send to the front end with GraphQL.
An issue that we ran into by using the Yelp API was that we were not easily able to get a restaurant's menu information. So we decided to scrape the Yelp website directly for that. We made a module called Dish Helper that filters down that information and saves it directly into our database. And from there, we're able to send that over to the front end. And this is what it looks like stored in our database with the ID, the name, and the cuisine type.